Chapter 1.
Oh my god, this is incredible.
Right,
Right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm here for it. Go on.
Okay, Chapter 1. Jenny. Jenny was a woman who didn't want trouble. She had never liked it. Even as a kid, growing up on a farm in Texas with 2 older brothers, she was always made to do... I'm going to make sure I say the grammar in the correct place, by the way, so if I pause in a really dumb place, it's because you got it right, probably. Anyway, so even as a kid, growing up on a farm in Texas with 2 older brothers, she was always made to do the farm work that nobody wanted to do. But she never put up a fight and never protested. She was a sweet little girl. She had light blonde hair that would flow around in the wind, like when a bird loses its feather and it dances around in the wind before finally sitting down to rest. She had lots of freckles that walked around her face, over the bridge of her nose and onto her cheeks. Her bright blue eyes lit up the room whenever she walked in. She had a small gap between her 2 front teeth due to an accident with one of the farm horses, but this meant that when she smiled, she could make any adult smile and cheer up even at the lowest of their days. God almighty. She wore a straw hat, dungarees and boots. When she was on the farm, whether it was petting the animals, riding the horses, or going for a tractor ride with her dad. Growing up on a farm with 2 older brothers, Toby and Mark, meant that as she grew older, she became stronger than most in her class, both physically and mentally. She was very mature at the tender age of 10. Tender makes me feel sick, that word. Jenny was very bright, and this shone through her schoolwork. She was remarkably intelligent for such a young person. She was finishing work set by the teacher, even before the others had started. Her intelligence didn't just stop at intellectual things like school. She was always fiddling with things, wanting to play around with toys, take them apart, put them back together again, invent new things. She loved helping her mum around the house, doing the washing up, dinner, or helping with the laundry. As Jenny grew up, she had a very traumatic experience that would change the way she felt forever. Her dad, who was very influential in her life, but unfortunately died of a heart attack when she was 15. He died whilst out in the barn. He was cleaning up, stacking hay, and putting away the animals when he had a heart attack. There was no one around to help him, so he just lay there, cold, lifeless, and still until Jenny walked into the barn. Into is separate, apparently. She found his stone-cold body. She knew something was wrong. She could feel it. She called out to him. "Dad?" She asked quietly. Wait, so did she call out to him, or did she ask quietly, Gus? Waiting to... How many commas? Wait, let me read this sentence fully. Okay.
Wait, let me send the other pages for chapter 1, so...
Right. She found his stone-cold body. She knew something was wrong. She could feel it. She called out to him. "Dad?" She asked quietly, awaiting a reply only to be greeted with silence in return for her desperate grasp of hope. Jesus. She called out again. "Daddy?" The panic grew in her voice. She called out again and again. Oh my god. Fucking hell.
Yeah, there's a lot of pages in chapter 1.
There's a lot of pages. Do you want me to fucking read it?
Yeah, go on. I didn't say stop.
No. Each time her voice increased in panic. She didn't understand what was happening. She only knew that she was scared. No, she only knew that was scared. Yeah, it's on the 4th one he sent. She only knew that was scared. She ran to Mum as quickly as she could. She was panicking, sobbing. Why the fuck are there so many semicolons, commas? Sobbing, couldn't feel her legs as they carried her over the field, downhill and into the house. They sprinted out as quickly as they could, dodging sheep, trying not to slip on the wet mud. It had been raining earlier that day. All the while, they were hoping with insane desperation that he would be okay, that it would be some sort of practical joke from him, but it wasn't. They kneeled down holding his lifeless body in their arms. Her mum tried CPR, but nothing. No coughs. No, there was no comma there. That was the one place you need a comma. Her mum tried CPR, but nothing. No coughs. No sudden gasp of air, nothing. They cried, wailed, screamed for him.
Come after they.
Why is there a comma after they? The ambulance soon arrived and took him away. Jenny, at 15 years old, seeing her dad lying there on the cold hard ground of the barn, a shovel lying parallel to the left to his body. The shovel would have been bigger than most people, but not her dad. Her dad was 6 feet 4 inches and very muscular. He towered over most grown men. Jenny recalled the times where she used to grip onto his biceps with both her hands and hold on for dear life. He would pull her up and down and swing her around. It used to make everyone in the house cry with laughter. Jenny, her mum, Toby and Mark all grieved for a long time. Toby and Mark did a good job of staying strong for their mum and sister by concealing their emotions and not letting it all out. But for Jenny and her mum, things were different. They would cry and break down very often. For a few years, they were distraught. Anything could send them spiraling. Whether it was laying the table for 5 instead of 4, or looking outside to see the tractor was in the same place it had been yesterday, the day before that, and the day before that, to see the grass overgrown, and climbing up the tractor until the tractor was enveloped in grass and weeds. Jenny was undoubtedly hit the hardest. Being the youngest meant she was the most vulnerable. She was grieving so much and just didn't know what to do with herself. She fell into a pit of emotional and mental concealment. This once beautiful young girl whose laugh brightened up the day was now dressed in white, dirty robes, had big dark circles under her eyes from sleep deprivation, and was being fed pills hourly at the psychiatric ward of a hospital dedicated to neural science. Why is that highlighted?
I don't know, but isn't she like 10?
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, she's in a psych ward and she's 10 years old. Okay. Just because someone in their family died, fucking hell. After a few years at the psychiatric ward, she was deemed mentally and emotionally sane. She returned home to her mother down in Mexico. Her mother moved to a little apartment on the coast of Mexico to start a new life, as she couldn't bear to live on the farm and constantly look out of her bedroom window in the morning to see where her lover, her best friend, her soulmate had died.
Soulmate.
She sold the land and the house to some rich company that grew fruits and vegetables for supermarkets. She didn't care what the company would do with the land, she just wanted to know. She was just so exhausted to care about anything. During Jenny's stay at the hospital, both her brothers, Mark and Toby, had come out of Yale and Harvard University with a degree in psychology and law. Mark went on to become a lawyer and practices in law in his own law firm in Los Angeles. Toby became a therapist and works in hospitals all around the world. Jenny was in the hospital for 10 years.
Is it a few years?
A few years? It turned out to be a decade. She was in hospital for a decade. Right, but apparently everyone else in the family was fine. They went to the top universities in the world. They own their own law firms, while she's just
taking pills as a 10-year-old.
Okay, her mother had to stop visiting after a while because with no job and all the money gone from selling the farm, Jenny's mum couldn't afford to keep visiting her. So you put your daughter in a psychiatric ward for a decade, then you fuck off to a different country. Christ almighty. So when the terms of Jenny's release included the fact that she had to live with a family member and to be supervised by them for 2 years at minimum, meant that Jenny's mum would be taking her in, and she was determined to bring her baby girl home. Drove all the way to San Francisco Medical Center to take Jenny home again.
What money did she drive to San Francisco with that she couldn't visit her?
Yeah, I thought she had no fucking money to go anywhere. She somehow managed to get all the way from some small town in Mexico to San Francisco.
A review of Chapter 1. She returned home to Mexico. When did he introduce her brothers? That he just randomly dropped them in?
They were just in there, yeah. But the death was suddenly, it was literally just like
And the
He
sound.
described her life before the death of her dad for about one page, and then suddenly everyone was dead.
The 3 times. And her dad
It's
sounded
very
physically
strange.
fit, so how did a heart attack come through?
I've got no idea.
How tall is the average person in this world that a shovel would be taller than them?
No,
Because
he never said the shovel was taller than him, though,
no,
did he?
because the shovel is taller than your average person, and the shovels are up to my hip.
Oh my god, hang on a minute, yeah. The shovel would have been bigger than most average people, but her dad was 6 feet 4 inches. Wait, no, the shovel wasn't bigger than him.
No, but the shovel was bigger than the average person. How tall is your average person?
Oh
The
yes,
average person's like
the shovel
5'8".
must be about, yeah, the shovel must be about 6 feet tall. The shovel, yeah, right, the shovel's about 6 foot tall. What shovel is 6 foot tall? Christ almighty.
That means the shovel's
How
nearly as
is
tall.
that meant to
How,
work?
how do you use that? Oh.
I don't know if he meant it would be too big for most people to pick up, if you see what I mean. Maybe it's just a really hefty shovel, like a meaty shovel.
Plus, it's 6 foot tall.
Either way, it doesn't make any sense.
I love how that he said. I remember it says when she screamed, or she screamed out "Dad," and then said it quietly.
Yeah. I'm just going to read the last paragraph because it's here. Jenny was finally back with her mother after 10 long years apart. Jenny's mum chose to go down to Mexico because she needed a dramatic change, somewhere she had no connection with at all, and because she had no money. She blew all her money trying to fix a hole in her life, gambling, nights out with strangers. Her mum needed to make some money, so she worked in a restaurant not far from where they had been living. She thought it was a good idea to come down to Mexico, but when she came to...
Dun dun dun.
What a cliffhanger. I wonder what's gonna... That's mad. I haven't read that book since 2017.
That was
How fucked up is
amazing.
that? And yet, we all still remembered how shit it was.
Just
I
post this on
remembered her
YouTube.
wind
Jenny.
blowing around in the hair like a plastic bag drifting through the wind, and then you remember the shovel being bigger than him.
Shovel's massive.
Do you ever feel
Mm.
a plastic bag drifting through the wind?
Where was that from?
Wanting to start again. Firework by Katy Perry.
No, but it's like, what movie was it that they just keep?
Or Interview.
Oh yeah. Kim Jong-un just cries. That's an amazing movie. God. Can't believe she went to the psychiatric ward at age 10, popping pills for a few years, which turned out to be 10 years.
She was there for 10 years. What the fuck? He tried so hard in so many different fields, didn't he?
Piano
He
lessons
used
with
to
Rebecca
get
was
the most
amazing.
ridiculous suits on. The piano lessons, writing a book. I think the book was to make himself seem intelligent and, you know, quite thoughtful and, you know...
But he fucked it up.
Yeah, for Ellie or whoever it was.
He was
This is trash. This is hot trash.
Hot trash.
I'm not proofreading this shit.
God, Gus. But him shaving his head literally just changed his whole life, I think.
That did change his life, yeah.
And now he's a much more successful person.
He is a much more successful person as a bold man, yeah, I have to say. I have to say. I mean, fucking hell, if he wasn't there, I mean, my hair would peak, but thank fuck he was there, because he got the brunt of the jokes, mate.
God.
I got away lightly, because he was at that school.
What's the mate?
Oh my, yeah, and he used Thicken Up. I remember, who was it? I think it was Joe that found Thicken Up in his bag, and we stole it from him, and he, and he wasn't able to use it for like a week, so his hair was looking so thin.
God.